Welcome back to the Yardy MMA podcast where we talk boy in the face and defend ourselves. I'm your host Silverback Sigri and today's episode is titled Training Burnout. As a MMA fighter, during your training, you will find that there comes a time where you lose motivation in your training, you don't really have much interest and you don't really feel that excited for God training. And this can happen in any sport, and mixed martial arts is no exception. Now, what do you do when you experience training burnout? Because that's what burnout is basically. You just don't really have that motivation, that drive to go training no more. And it don't last. Don't get it twisted. Don't think that the world will come to an end. Training burnout don't last forever. It's just a time period. Life is ups and downs. And training burnout, you will just experience that for a time and then you will get back to it. But these are just some tips that you can use whenever you experience training burnout to help make the process and make that time period easier for you. Alright, the first thing to do is to take a break. Just take a break from training. Literally just stop training. Stop training for either a couple of days or a couple of weeks, depending on where you are. Meaning, if you have a fight come up, if you have a fighter come up, you know, so you can't really do that. But if you know it's just regular training that you have, then you can take a break away from it. What do you do in this break time? You can catch up on some movies, watch some movies. You can play some games with the man them who you normally play a game with. You know, you have a group of friends them who long time wanna play some FIFA or some Call of Duty. Can catch up together and just run some game in that time period where you don't normally have training. And you can also catch up on some time with your loved ones, you know. You have a girlfriend or your sister, brother, cousin, mother, whoever it is, spend some time with them, talk to them in that time there where you don't normally have training. Maybe schedule a outing with them and just make the most of the time in a relaxed way, in a way that will ease your mind and just take you away from the training. One of my favorite things to do in that time period when I'm taking a break away from training is I normally watch fighter documentaries. So I would normally go on YouTube and you can do one of two things. Either you just type in a fighter name and just put documentary at the end, obviously. Or there's this channel that I can recommend. The channel name is Joseph Vincent. And he has some excellent documentaries. He has boxing documentaries and some MMA fighter documentaries. So I'd go on the website on YouTube and go on the YouTube channel and say, for example, I'd watch a Israel Adesanya documentary. And just going through that process of watching my favorite fighter, because Israel is my favorite fighter, although I hate him I get on the internet from one day. Like, but up on Reddit from the other day, and everybody just had trashed Israel. Everybody just had dogged the man, like, say, yo, if this fighting thing is so easy, isn't me? Like, say, fighting is easy, and he might make the performances them look boring. He might make the performances them boring, basically. But that's aside from the point. But yeah, but I just watch Israel Adesanya documentary, for example. And just that, by going through that process of watching my favorite fighter do the thing that we both love, and just to learn more about his backstory and go through seeing his development and his journey through the sport of MMA, that make you feel energized. And just by sitting down and watching that, it's like you have this itch for just get back in a training. So that is the first way that I can use to help you to get through that period where you're experiencing burnout. So just take a break, watch some movie, play some game with the man them, or watch some fighter documentary and it will just make you feel good, make you feel energized, make you itching for take on a fight and just go in a training and go in a sparring session and thump boy in them face. The next way you can go through this period of burnout, or something that can help you in this period of burnout, experiencing burnout, is variety. A lot of the times our training can become monotonous and it can become boring because we have this set regimen of things we do. So for example, Monday you do cardio, Tuesday you do strength and conditioning, Wednesday you do kickboxing, Thursday you do wrestling, so on and so forth. Whatever your schedule is for your training. And you just do this, basically you're doing the same things over and over again, largely the same things you're doing over and over again. It is great for you to introduce variety in your training. This will, one, bring a challenge to you, will bring a new challenge to you by introducing this variety. It will bring a new challenge to you and it will bring up the level of excitement that you experience during your training. Say for example, you are a striker, right? You just focus on striking, you love striking, you like kickboxing and you like boxing. And the majority of your time is spent doing kickboxing and boxing training in various ways. What you can do now to introduce some variety and to break up the training is maybe you do some jiu-jitsu, maybe you do some wrestling. That bring in a new challenge and that raise the level of excitement you have experienced. So you're not going to go in at the same old kickboxing sparring session and you just dread it and it feel like it go boring and you just go through the motions. Introduce some jiu-jitsu, introduce some wrestling and just bring up back the excitement level in your training session. Another thing that you can do also to introduce variety in your training to help you with training burnout is to take on the training routine of somebody that you know. So, for example, you have a brother or a sister who them exercise normally, them train normally, but is not necessarily MMA specific. Them just like go to the gym and them do them thing, them lift them weights. You can just say, oh, for a couple of days, maybe for that week, you join in upon them training session. I did that recently because the whole point of this, the whole origination of this podcast episode is that for the past 2 or 3 weeks, I've been experiencing training burnout and me just not feel the vibes to train. And it's not that me no want train, and it's not that me no love MMA no more. And I want to work towards the goal of fighting and being successful in my first fight. It's just that I go through a period where I experience training burnout. I just not feel like training. And instead of being hard on myself, instead of criticize myself and not force myself to train, although I do that couple days, but instead of realize that instead of forcing myself to train, just take the time for one, rest, as I said in the first point. Just take that time to just rest and just do other things, play some game, watch some movie. And the next thing that I did now is start do the training of my cousin. Just step into the training that my cousin would do. She exercise, and it's a light exercise and as intense as what I normally do in my MMA training on my own, but it's a nice breakaway from the norm of training MMA specific. Variety is one of the most important sports training principles, and I think that a lot of coaches and athletes take it for granted and don't focus on it enough. You cannot do the same thing over and over and over again. Eventually you'll get bored, eventually you'll get demotivated, you're gonna lose interest if every day you get up and you just do the same thing over and over again. It can't work. You have to introduce variety in your training. You have to refresh your brain, challenge your brain in a new way. And the final point that I can give you as something to help you with your training burnout is to just go light. I find that some of the times when, for example, you schedule a difficult training session where you're focusing on, say you're focused on cardio and body conditioning. So you know, say you're gonna do enough running or enough skipping or whatever your cardio is, plus you probably get a training partner for thumping in your gut, or you do some crunches, a variety of crunches, something like that. If you know that going into that training session in this period where you're experiencing training burnout, you're going to dread this training session. Just thinking about it, you just feel unhappy. You just hate the thought of, yo, I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna do this training, or I'm gonna go home from work and I'm gonna do this training. I just can't bother with it mentally right now. What you can do is, on your way home, just decide, say, yo, you know what, I'm gonna switch it up. Instead of doing the full workout, what I did plan for do, I'm gonna go light. Literally tell yourself that today I am going to go light. When you do this on your way home, on your way to the gym, on your way to your wherever you train, you find that you relieve the pressure upon your brain. You relax more. You basically dissipate this feeling of dread that you would be feeling prior to telling yourself that, yo, today I'm just gonna go light. And that is the first thing, to just tell yourself that, yo, today I'm gonna go light. Decide, say, you're gonna go light, and just do it. Help your brain, relax your brain, calm your brain. Then now, when you do the training, because telling yourself this is just a way of tricking your brain. Your brain can be tricked. You're not that smart. You can just trick your brain. Now, when you actually do the training, when you go in the gym or wherever it is that you train, and you go light. So what I would recommend is, instead of focusing on intensity, try to focus more on creativity for that day. I'm still in that period where I'm experiencing training burnout. I'm just coming out of that period, really. So it's been about 2 weeks that I've been experiencing it, and I know last week I did push to do some work and just force myself to do some work, and then this week really I allow myself to rest. I barely do nothing this week. This week is one of the weeks where either I wasn't doing anything, or I made a introduce the variety, as I said before, by doing my cousin exercises. But today now, as I'm coming out of this period where I'm experiencing training burnout, I decided that, yo, I want to get back on the horse. I'm ready for do the thing. I watch a documentary, then watch a couple documentary, I watch a couple fights too. That is another thing that can help you and that can inspire you and just bring back some excitement. I find myself recently, I watched some Conor McGregor old fights when he fight Chad Mendes and Eddie Alvarez, and I never really take the time out for notice how unique him technique was and how special him technique was, how masterful he was at controlling distance and slipping just out of range and then countering right back. If you just watch it, it's like you watch art. If you're a real MMA fan and you just love the sport and you're obsessed with the sport like I am, just by watching the old Conor McGregor, because him changed up his style recently and start focus more upon boxing. But if you watch the old Conor McGregor, when him just a boss in a UFC basically, you watch art, the footwork, the distance management, the accuracy, the man accurate on another level in those fights. But yeah, that's kind of straying away from the point. But I'm just say, I come out of this period where I experience the training burnout. So today now, I decided to get back on the horse and do some training. And I decided to do 25 minutes worth of skipping. So just set a 25-minute timer, play some music and just skip until the timer beep. And then while I was skipping, I find myself debating or arguing with myself as to what I would do after my skip. Normally, would I do some intense after my skip, so like some calisthenics, some crunches, push-ups, them type of thing there, or I do a series of, shadow boxing. I do a lot of shadow boxing, so it would be like, say for example, 3 5-minute rounds of shadow boxing. Instead of doing that and going intense and pushing the pace as I normally would, I decided that I would just do some creative shadow boxing. So instead of putting on my normal 16-ounce gloves that I would normally wear when I shadow box, put on my 4-ounce gloves, go up on YouTube and find a mix that I really like. It's a mix of Cuban music and just that salsa type of movement that the music inspires. It allows you to flow. Just for me personally, it allows me to flow more, and the shadow boxing is almost like I'm dancing while I'm shadow boxing. So I put on the Cuban music and just play that, and I'm not setting no time at all. I'm just put on the Cuban music, put on my 4-ounce gloves, and I just shadow box and just be creative. And instead of focusing on power while I'm shadow boxing, instead of me carrying around this heavy 16-ounce gloves, I just have on the 4-ounce gloves. I'm just a flow with it. I do different techniques. I throw elbows, kicks, and knees and punches, and just being creative, focusing on creativity, and that is a part of going light. So the two main parts of going light are, well, there can be 3 actually. 1, reduce intensity. 2, reduce duration. And 3, focus more on your creativity. Put a more creative spin in the training session rather than focusing on hard and rough and push the pace and what we would normally do. Because if I understand, so life is a series of yin and yang. You have the light and you have the dark, you have the feminine and you have the masculine. You have a time when you need to be aggressive and push and be rough and all of that, and then you have a next time where you need to be soft, where you need to be like water, as Bruce Lee would say, where you need to just, you know me, be more calm, be more creative rather than being calculated. And as fighters, I think it is important that we understand that life is a series of yin and yang, and know that in ourselves, in our spirit, in our personalities, that yin and yang will come out. And especially in training, sometimes you will go hard and you will push the pace and you will do the rough work that we as fighters are used to. And at other times, you need to be softer, you need to be more creative, more playful, you need to flow like water. Because just being hard and focusing only on the hard aspect of mixed martial arts training is going to get boring, it's going to get monotonous, and it might lead you to either disinterest or dreading your training sessions. You have to include that variety. You have to mix it up. You have to, as I say, focus on both yin and yang. So try out these tips and these ideas next time you are experiencing training burnout. It is very important that you recognize when you're experiencing training burnout. Just recognize when you are force it. Recognize them time there when you just not feel it. And sometime you not feel it and you have to push through it. Say you have a fight in 3 weeks. If you are experiencing training burnout at that time, say, it no matter, no. But you're out of fight camp, you just do your normal training for just stay in shape and improve your technique and improve your skills. if you experience training burnout in that time frame there, then you can allow yourself to do these things. Take a break, include some variety, and go light in your training sessions. So yeah, this has been the Yardie MMA podcast, where we thump boy in the face and defend ourselves. I'm your host, Silverback Sigree, and you can follow me on Instagram at Silverback Sigree, and DM me anything you want to talk about as it relates to MMA, because we're there for talk about MMA, because MMA fun and dynamic and exciting and great for talk about.